Good evening. The Platting Board for the Municipality of Anchorage will now come to order. It is December 2nd, 2020, 6:30 p.m. Due to concerns over large gatherings amid the COVID-19 outbreak, community members are strongly encouraged to provide testimony via email or telephone. Because of the federal, state, and local health department guidance and emergency measures, the Assembly Chambers is closed to the public. The Platting Board encourages anyone wishing to provide testimony via telephone to email planningtestimony@anchorage.ak.gov by 2 p.m. of the day of the meeting. Please provide your name, phone number, and agenda item for which you wish to provide testimony. The subject line should read phone testimony. The Secretary will phone you at the number you have provided. You will be given 3 minutes to provide testimony on an item on which you wish to speak. Group representatives are given 5 minutes. All of the documents listed on this agenda are available online at www.muni.org/watchnow. For auxiliary aid, services, and special modifications to participate, please contact the meeting secretary to request reasonable accommodations at 343-7576 or fax 343-7927. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for a regular meeting, the Board will carry over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak at a Platting Board meeting is, after the staff's presentation is complete on public hearing items, I will ask the public for testimony on an issue. People that wish to testify will follow the time limits established by the Commission Rules of Procedure. The petitioners are given 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups and community councils are given 5 minutes, and individuals are given 3. When your testimony is complete, the board may ask you additional questions. You may only testify once on an issue unless the board questions you further. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action we take. An appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by Anchorage Municipal Code 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing becomes final 7 calendar days after the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Platting Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision. An interested party must file with the municipal clerk a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision under AMC 2130. May we have roll call?
Valerie Ritz.
Present.
Clayton Walker.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Jenna Weltzing. Becky Lipson.
Present.
Karen McGillivray.
Present.
Thank you.
And we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the action summary of Thursday, November 5th, 2020? Kevin Cross has moved. And Mark Seward has seconded. Is there any opposition to approving the action summary before us? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Next, we'll turn our attention to minutes. We have minutes from November 5th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Kevin Cross has moved and Mark Seward has seconded. Are there any additions, changes, or corrections that need to be made to the draft minutes? Seeing and hearing none, is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the motion passes. The minutes have been approved. Next, we'll turn our attention to special order of business. Are there any disclosures this evening from the board members? Seeing and hearing no one. Hang on, I think Don Porter, are you requesting to make disclosures?
No. I'm just wondering if there's any discussion going on in the chamber that we're not able to hear.
I'm not aware of any discussion that's going on here, and it appears that my mic is the only one on presently.
Okay, great. It just seemed very silent other than hearing you.
Thank you. Seeing and hearing no one having any disclosures, we will move on to informational items. We have informational items, abbreviated plat summaries for November 16th, 20 and November 23rd, 20. With that, we will now turn to new business. We have staff's presentation of case S12578, Municipality of Anchorage Solid Waste Services.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to remove plat note number 3 from plat 94-38 Campbell Creek Commercial Park Subdivision. Plat note number 3 reads as follows, quote, direct vehicular access to Ingress Street from any lot is prohibited, end quote. The Planning Department has reviewed the application and presents the following findings for the board's consideration. For approval criteria A, at the time plat 94-38 was recorded, the adjoining portion of Ingress Street was undeveloped. A requirement to improve Inga Street to a half-street standard was added as a condition of approval of the original plat. Under the direction of the Planning Department guidelines in place at the time, this improvement requirement was later removed through an amended summary of action because the property owner had committed to signing into a road improvement district once the peripheral streets were to be improved. And documentation of this is shown in attachment 5 of the staff packet. The lack of improvements to Ingress Street at this time is likely the reason why vehicular traffic was prohibited from accessing it. Several years later, in 2006, this portion of Ingress Street was strip paved to adequately accommodate vehicular traffic coming to and from the Solid Waste Services campus. Removing this plat note will not only bring the current access to the Solid Waste Services campus into conformity, but it will also maintain consistency with current platting practices of the Anchorage Planning Department. For approval criteria B, the removal of plat note number 3 is unlikely to negatively impact nearby or adjacent properties. Allowing the lots within this subdivision the option to take access from Inga Street will provide an alternative means of access rather than locating all driveways along East 54th Avenue and East 56th Avenue. Neighboring property owners will still retain the full rights to develop, maintain, and utilize their property in a lawful manner. Additionally, there does not appear to be any negative impact to vehicular traffic flow because of this request. For approval criteria C, if this plat note removal is approved, plat 94-38 will continue to comply with all applicable subdivision regulations, as well as the approval criteria of Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 3, subsection 200C9. All lots within the subdivision will continue to meet the dimensional and lot design standards of Anchorage Municipal Code, as well as the subdivision standards. And considering these findings, the department does recommend approval of the request to remove plat note number 3 from plat 94-38, subject to condition 1A on page 4 of the staff packet. And then also to make the board aware, there is one advisory comment, and that is the existing gate or blockade located north of the intersection of East 56th and Inga Street is within the municipal right-of-way of Inga Street. A right-of-way permit for this gate or blockade could not be located, and Solid Waste Services is advised to obtain all necessary permits to allow this gate and blockade to remain as is from the right-of-way section. But we are still wishing that that stay advisory at this time and not be placed as a condition of approval of this plat note removal request. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, do we have petitioner's representative present? Do we have any members of the public who will be called this evening?
Yes, we do. Hello, is this Bob Haygood?
It's his wife. Who's this? Who's this?
This is the Platting Board calling for a public testimony on case S12578.
Hang on just a minute. Let me see if I can locate him. I can't find him, so can we just listen to what's going on? I can't find him though.
You're
not-
able to
not-
listen online, but unfortunately if Bob is not available to provide his testimony, we will have to end the call.
Okay. But we can go online and listen to the rest of it by going into. I've
Correct.
never tried to get online for him.
Yep, you can listen online.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. He's not here to take on the call right now. This knows the kink and a lot of things that were going on.
Okay, thank you.
And what was your name?
This is Carly with the Platting Board.
Okay, Carly. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony.
Thank you. Does the petitioner's representative wish to rebut anything?
Mr. Chair, we do have the petitioner's representative. They are showing as present within the meeting. Perhaps they're having technical difficulties. Maybe their microphone is not working.
Is it Ryan? Yeah. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, that'd be Laquita Chmielowski as the petitioner's representative.
I would have the record reflect that we do have the petitioner's representative's written statement in support of the motion on pages 9 and 10. We are attempting to contact Laquita Chmielewski. She is appearing as in the meeting, but we're not able to communicate with her yet.
Remember, you must now dial 1.
What was the number again?
Hello, Laquita.
Yes.
You have the floor.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Laquita Chmielewski. It's Chmielowski, and I am with Dowell Engineers. I'm here tonight representing Solid Waste Services on the request to remove Plat Note 3 from Plat 9438. So the parcel was originally developed as part of AAA storage, and at that time, access to Ingra was not allowed as part of the platting. And so we're just seeking to remove the plat note that restricts access to Ingra Street. In 2006, Solid Waste Services acquired the parcels, and they now use it for access to their residential, or for residential customers going to the pay booth and then onto the tipping floor. So this plat note removal would just help reflect the current function of the site and remove any encumbrances for future access. I would also request to reserve any time that I have remaining for rebuttal. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does the board have any questions for Laquita Chmielewski? I don't see or hear any questions for you.
Okay.
So that will complete the public hearing portion of the matter, and the matter now rests with the board. I'd like to have a motion. Kevin, would you like to state your motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the request to remove plat note number 3 from plat 9738 for Campbell Creek Commercial Park subdivision, subject to A, recording a resolution within the State of Alaska Recorder's Office. And this is regarding case S12578.
Yeah, 9438?
Yes, record S12578.
Okay, good. Correct. And that motion, do we have a second? Mark Seward has seconded the motion. Mr. Cross, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, the staff packet clearly outlines on page 2 or 3 the conditions of which this must meet. I think most importantly that is number C, despite modification or removal of the plat note, the plat continues to meet the approval criteria of the subsection 21.03200C9, and it will continue to comply within the applicable subdivision regulations.
Thank you. Do we have any other findings from any other board members? I would like to also make findings that the conditions have changed in that the strip paving has occurred and there's been change in property ownership, and the use of the property has changed. And allowing this change to occur with respect to the access will not have a negative impact on the adjacent or nearby properties, and there's been no complaints from the public. With that, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Lipson,
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Ms. Weltzine? Ms. Weltzine?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Ms.
Okay, thank
McGillivray?
you. Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
And Chair Walker?
Aye.
Thank you.
And we have a unanimous vote. The motion passes. We'll next turn our attention to case S12580, Alaska Mental Health Trust. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On September 5th, 2018, the Platting Board approved a preliminary plat for Yosemite TLO subdivision to subdivide 3 lots in 1 tract into 5 tracts with vacation of a 150-foot wide, 2.2-acre section of right-of-way. This is the first 24-month time extension request of the preliminary plat, and this property is located on the northeast intersection of Eagle River Loop Road and Yosemite Drive in Eagle River. This time extension request was submitted August 28, 2020, prior to the expiration of the preliminary plat as required by code. And based on the non-objection of the reviewing agencies, the Planning Department recommends approval of the first 24-month time extension to September 5th, 2022. I'll answer any questions you have, and thanks.
Does the Platting Board member have any questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, is there a petitioner's representative on this matter?
The petitioner's representative is the municipality, so I think I can answer anything, but there's no rebuttal, so I don't think there's any public testimony either.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this evening?
No public testimony.
Thank you. Well, this is the board's last chance to get additional input before we close the public hearing. Do you have any questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. May I have a motion? Kevin Cross, please state your motion.
In the case of S12580 Yosemite LTO subdivision, first time extension request, I move to extend, I was looking for the exact verbiage that we're looking for. I move to grant the extension. Oh, thank you. Move the extension from previously approved prelim.
And Mark Seward has seconded that motion. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on the matter? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? We'll go ahead and call the vote on case S12580.
Ms. Lipson?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Ms. Weltzine?
Aye.
Ms. McGillivray?
Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
And Chair Walker?
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, the motion passes. We'll next turn our attention to case S12582, CJM Properties, LLC. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case S12582, which is River Hills subdivision. And this is a request to subdivide 1 lot into 6 lots in 1 tract. So this request is being made to develop the property for future single family on the proposed 6 lots and to set aside tract A for a potential future subdivision. So the petition site is located north of East 156th Avenue and south of Rabbit Creek Road. The property is zoned R6 for the proposed lots 1 through 6 on the northern half and R9 for the remainder, which is Tract A. So Little Rabbit Creek is the zoning designation boundary, and staff has placed the condition that the lots and the tract shall follow the boundary line as to not create any split zone property. The proposed lots do meet the minimum lot size and width required by the respective R6 and R9 zoning districts. For road improvements and dedication of East 156th Avenue, the official Streets and Highways Plan identifies East 156th Avenue as a local road with a minimum right-of-way width of 50 to 60 feet, and staff is requesting the condition to dedicate 30 feet of the southern portion of Tract A as right-of-way for the northern half of East 156th Avenue. For Snowflake Drive, that's the cul-de-sac that they're showing on their preliminary plat that they're going to access the lots. So that should be constructed to municipal standards as a 20-foot wide strip paved street from the western project terminus to Mesa Place. And the petitioner shall construct a 39.5-foot radius cul-de-sac, but reconfigure the driveways from Lot 1 and Lot 2, those are existing driveways from Mountain Air subdivision, to come off the improved portion of Snowflake Drive, which they will construct. Staff is also requesting a condition to resolve the intersection configuration with private development and to provide an intersection lighting per the Hillside District Plan and traffic's recommendation in their comments. Staff is also requesting a condition that prior to final plat approval, the petitioner enter into a subdivision agreement. That's for the required improvements of Snowflake Drive. On to trails. So the non-motorized transportation coordinator has made a comment of 50-foot stream setback along the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt. The proposed plat meets the needs for future trail development within the setback, clearing of vegetation and construction of a soft surface trail, minimum of 8 feet within this street setback. And the proposed plat for access to the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt shall have an easement minimum of 20 feet requested for constructability. In addition, add clearing of vegetation and construct a soft surface trail a minimum of 5 feet and put signage at both terminuses. So taking into the account for the non-motorized transportation coordinator's comments, staff believes that the most reasonable solution to addressing trails is to require the petitioner to dedicate a 20-foot wide trail easement as shown along the eastern boundary of the subdivision south of Snowflake Drive, as well as the 20-foot trail easement that connects east-west along Little Rabbit Creek, which is identified as a primary trail connection in the area-wide trails plan and Hillside District Plan. Planning has placed a condition to clear vegetation and construct a soft surface trail within this easement along the eastern boundary of Lot 1 south to Little Rabbit Creek, and then clear and construct an 8-foot soft surface trail within a 20-foot easement that runs east-west along Little Rabbit Creek. Let's see here. Now, AMC 2107-020D3D, which is a wildlife management corridors, states that trails should be sited with direct consultation from Alaska Department of Fish and Game if they are within 200 feet on either side of the ordinary high water mark of Little Rabbit Creek, and that's to minimize human-wildlife interactions. So staff has made a condition of approval for that. In addition, Watershed Management Services has stated any disturbance or development within the 50-foot non-development flood hazard setback will require the petitioner to provide a flood study, base flood elevations, flood mapping, and a flood hazard permit. So staff has crafted their conditions of approval to resolve with the non-motorized transportation coordinator and Alaska Department of Fish and Game of where that east-west trail along the creek shall go, as they've got a couple things going on there. If they're within the 50-foot non-development, they're going to have to do all the studies and flood mapping, and then also within 200 feet, so they have to coordinate with Fish and Game. So there's going to be some coordination there of the exact placement of that trail, and that's reflected in the conditions. Conformance with adopted plans. I should also add, in the Hillside District Plan and the area-wide trails plan, the trails proposed across this property are right along Rabbit Creek and also East 156th Avenue. That's the only two trails that are shown in there. So conformance with adopted plans, it meets land use policy 4.1. It's located within a rural area of the municipality. It'll provide additional lots for those seeking a rural large lot parcel to purchase. Land use policy 5.1, it's keeping in context with the surrounding neighborhood, and planned improvements for streets and utilities will allow the subdivision to be developed to municipal standards. With all those comments in mind, staff has made the recommendation of approval, and you can find the conditions on page 9, 10, and 11 of the staff packet. I can answer any questions or clarification as well. Thanks.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Mr. Cross.
Does this trail that is proposed or basically is yet to be configured here, but they've got to work obviously with Fish and Game, and then does it connect on either side? I'm just curious, is there already an existing trail system that they're tying into, or is this just the beginning of a?
Well, Mr. Cross, there is on the west side some dedicated trail easement along that creek corridor. On the east side, that's kind of undeveloped on the south half, and looking at the grid, I did not see any like trail easements dedicated.
Okay, so we have easement on the west, but not actually a trail. And I'm just kind of curious if maybe if there was existing trails you got to tie into, that would obviously dictate where that's going to go.
Yeah, that's
a little more concretely, but it doesn't look like there is.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Seeing and hearing none, do we have petitioner's representative?
Yes, good evening, Chairman, member of the board. I'm Craig Bennett, BENNTT with S4 Group and the petitioner's representative. And with me tonight is Triad Engineering if the board has any civil questions. And start off with, there's no variances or vacations with this plat. Fairly simple, and we agree with all of staff's recommendations and conditions. The only thing I'd like to add is the ACP shows that trail going east-west along Little Rabbit Creek, and on the preliminary plat, we're showing a 20-foot trail dedication, and we're working with the trail coordinator for the exact location of that. There is no existing trail there yet, either end. And but we will work with the trail coordinator and the other departments to figure out exactly where they want that. And then on lot 1, proposed lot 1, we were showing a 10-foot trail easement from the cul-de-sac down to Little Rabbit Creek. And now staff's asking for a 20-foot trail easement, and we're happy to provide that. So we'll provide a 20-foot trail easement there instead of the 10 that we were showing. And with that, both myself and Triad Engineering are available to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for petitioner's representative? Well, you have 8 minutes and 40 seconds for rebuttal. And we'll now take public testimony.
Oh,
Hi, is this Nancy Pease?
it is.
This is the Platting Board calling for your public testimony on case S12582. Are you calling as an individual or a representative of a group?
As an individual.
Okay, you'll have 2 minutes to provide your testimony. If you could please state your name for the record, you could begin.
I'm sorry, isn't it 3 minutes?
I'm sorry, 3 minutes. You're correct.
Shall I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm going to focus on the topic of pedestrian connectivity. Staff drafted some good conditions of approval, and I urge you to adopt them. But it would make one suggested change to condition 14. That's the Greenbelt Trail parallel to the creek. If there could be an alternative location outside the floodplain, that would allow the developer to choose not to do the floodplain study, and it might be more environmentally sensitive. My main comment is to ask for a change to conditions 12 and 13. Condition 12, by creating an easement that stops at the creek, does not meet the Hillside District Plan or area-wide trails plan intent to extend a trail upstream all the way to Section 36 Park. It allows Tract A to become a barrier to future trail connection to parks and schools. The Hillside District Plan is clear that there's a main pedestrian and vehicular corridor south of the creek along the 156th Avenue alignment. And in fact, this plat will reserve a vehicular easement along the alignment. So it makes sense to connect a pedestrian connection to it. And here's what we know about what's happening south of the creek. There could be a surge of development south of the creek before Tract A is subdivided. If the Creekside Trail is going to continue upstream, it will be on the south side of the creek. On page 37 of your packet, I put in a little crude concept map. It shows a dashed line of where the trail is likely to continue upstream. The trail needs to extend, in condition 12, needs to extend at least 50 feet south of the creek so that it can reach the future trailside stream on the south side. But it's best if it would extend all the way to 156th Avenue. There is a plan that's started to gather steam with school PTAs and the Rabbit Creek Community Council to make a safe route to schools and parks along the 156th Avenue alignment. That might happen before the road goes in. We're actively researching it right now. And the Hillside District Plan says that not every connection is shown in the Hillside District Plan, that as subdivision occurs, local access points will become apparent, and this is one of them. So I guess to summarize, I'd like you to change conditions 12 and 13 to require the north-south easement to extend south along or through Tract A and connect to 156th Avenue. At the very least, it should extend into the stream setback south of the creek so that Tract A will not become a barrier to future trail connectivity shown in the Hillside District Plan and area-wide trails plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Pease? Thank you, Ms. Pease. It appears that you've satisfied everyone's inquiry. May we have the next caller?
No, I'll just wait till the public testimony is done, then I'll ask my questions.
Hello.
Hi, is this
Diane Holmes, and I'm speaking for the Rabbit Creek Council.
You're speaking for the Community Council?
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay. You'll have 5 minutes to provide your testimony for case S12582. If you could state your name for the record, you can begin.
Sure. You want me to start?
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Diane Holmes, speaking for the Rabbit Creek Council. And although this is my birthday, I have elected to meet with you above all the other options that were canceled.
And the council was really pleased to see so many of our requests have been included in the staff conditions. We were, however, surprised by the condition for a street light. I realize this came from Traffic Department, who cited HDP's policy 14.0. But that policy actually says establish standards for lighting, and I'm unclear if Title 21 has codified rural lighting standards. Now, the background paragraph for this also states that hillside residents want to preserve their dark skies. So I canvassed 6 neighbors closest to the proposed light, and all were emphatic there should not be one. The intersection has very low traffic of maybe 50 cars a day on our narrow substandard roads. We're not part of a limited road service, so I believe this policy was meant for higher traffic areas, and we question who would pay for the electricity for the light. So please remove this condition. Now, the council is also glad to see the condition for a public trail easement along Little Rabbit Creek, as well as a north-south connection. The streamside path will tie into similar easements downstream through 2 subdivisions and will end in Golden View. This is how we obtain a network of walking paths, subdivision by subdivision. The north-south trail is a logical accompaniment that will allow people to go from Snowflake down to the streamside path. However, staff didn't include the council's request to continue the easement across the creek through that southern tract A and up the hill to 156. This really would provide a link that would likely be a safe walking path to Bear Valley School along 156, as well as for hikers that might wish to go to Section 36 Park. Staff asked for, dedication of 156 as a right-of-way, so why shouldn't the north-south pedestrian easement also be dedicated through Tract A? Now, we thought it might have something to do that it was a tract, but the Platting Board required a trail easement in a tract in the Canyon View Estates in June of this year. So please add this north-south easement through Tract A to connect to 156, as well, of course, to that north side easement. So it should be one continuous easement. We did not see a requirement for the plat and plat notes to show these public easements. Staff's condition number 15 requires plat notes for several things, but the public trails component is missing. The downstream plat shows and notes their public easements, so please require River Hills easements to be shown on the plat and notes. The adjacent Spruce Terraces subdivision of December of last year included the requirement to construct the pedestrian easements, not just to plat them. The Potter Heights subdivision in October of 2016 also placed a similar condition, including that such construction was required at the time of the land use permit application. We welcome River Hills' condition to also construct soft trail surface paths, although a time frame like Potter Heights was not included. And last, when S4 met with the neighbors via Zoom this summer, a big concern was the repairing of Mesa Place, through which River Hills traffic will pass in order to get to Rabbit Creek Road. I believe the developer mentioned repairing the road in their application, yet I don't see that as a condition. So if it is in the purview of the Platting Board, please include that requirement along with the condition that the neighbors be involved in the selection of a contractor. We have been burned so badly with poor workmanship in the past, and our poor roads can't take any more substandard construction. And I do thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Diane Holmes?
I have a question for Mrs. Holmes.
Mr. Cross.
This summer, a big concern was the repairing. Hello?
Mrs. Holmes, Kevin Cross here. I appreciate your testimony. Just because sometimes when you were speaking, we didn't have the clearest, and there was I just had one question. Your first concern had to do with lighting, and you said you wanted to remove that from the plat approval. What specific number in the plat approval were you addressing when you said you had a concern with the road? That was
Which condition? I will try to bring it up. I will have to look at all of the.
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, I believe she's referencing on page 10, item number 7, which is resolve with private development, hang on one second.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, intersection configuration of Mesa Place and Snowflake Drive to include intersection lighting.
And Mrs. Holmes, it's my understanding you do not want intersection lighting?
No, absolutely not. The neighbors and I'm not sure how much you caught of that, the neighbors that I canvassed, because this only came up when I read the staff recommendations. We didn't know about that when S4 met with us. And so I canvassed the neighbors, and they were emphatic against it. It's really, that condition is meant for a higher trafficked area, not our subdivision of 50 cars a day.
And so your concern with the intersection lighting is what, the cost of the electricity? Was that my understanding?
Well, I don't know who would be paying for it, but we don't want it anyway. But that was another question I had, who would pay for it. But I just don't ever remember any of the plats since the passage of the Hillside District Plan requiring a street light.
Is it potentially the other reason we don't want intersection lighting is because we don't want bright lights at night in a nice.
That's part of it. Yes.
Okay, just so I'm clear. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Is there anything else that was unclear? If I was garbled, please ask.
Thank you. Does that raise any other questions for any other board members? Thank you, Ms. Holmes.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public testimony?
That concludes public testimony.
And we'll now return to rebuttal.
Hello.
Yes.
So the three things I heard were lights, trails going down the north-south, and then a trail along 156. I'll leave the light alone and it's just one of the typical conditions, but I can let Triad address lights. For the trail on 156th, there's already an existing 33-foot section easement all along the south side, and we're dedicating a 30-foot right-of-way along the south. And then Tract A is also undeveloped for now. 156 is not developed at this time. There's just a driveway to a single-family house going along it. And typically when developments go in is when the trails go in, but we have been working with the trails coordinator and the planning director both on these trail locations and sizes and what was required. And same thing for going down the east side of Tract A, that would be more appropriate when Tract A gets developed in the future. And I'll let, Triad speak to the lighting and the roads on Mesa and Snowflake.
Yes, this is Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. That's M-A-R-C-O-T-T. As far as the lighting goes, there's two items in the conditions. Item 5, found on page 9, mentions intersection lighting. And then as staff mentioned, item 7 on page 10 both mention intersection lighting. Title 21, which codifies the requirements for improvements, recommends intersection lighting per the Hillside District Plan. So it generally defers the recommendation back to Hillside District Plan. And the lighting requirement has generally been recommended by the traffic department. In this case, we don't have any objection with deleting that requirement. We are in full agreement that the traffic loading from this development and the current development just really does not justify adding an additional street light with an expensive load center. The cost for the installation of those types of facilities are pretty expensive, and then I expect the municipality would have to bear the cost of that. So if those two items were to be resolved or to be revised, the intersection lighting requirements would be removed. As far as the existing conditions of Mesa Place, when we addressed the community council a few months back, there were questions and concerns regarding the existing condition of Mesa and what would happen during construction. The response that we gave the community was that the contractor selected for work within the new subdivision would be held liable for any further damage to Mesa Place beyond its existing conditions. So what we typically do is we meet with the contractor, we meet with the right-of-way department, and
can we pause? Sir.
We walk the existing conditions of the surrounding roads that are used for access and document the current conditions. And that way, if the existing conditions further deteriorate beyond what they are today, the contractor would then be responsible to come in and repair those issues. Now that's handled under the subdivision agreement that we have to enter with the municipality and enforced by the right-of-way department. So that's kind of a de facto common practice that occurs with every development that we have. The contractor is always on the hook for those off-site existing improvements, if you will. So those will be addressed if they're further damaged beyond what they are today. I think those were the two items that I had. Craig, did you have any further rebuttal?
I think that's all that I had also.
Thank you. And that concludes the public hearing. The matter now rests with the board. Well, I take that back. Does the board have any questions for petitioner's representative?
Through the chair.
Mr. Cross.
Brandon, Mr. Marcotte, I apologize. During your public testimony, somebody had not silenced their mic, and we had phone ringing, and I couldn't quite hear. Again, the public testimony, and I just want you real succinctly, you might have to reiterate some of the things you said, but just do it briefly. The concern here appears to be that the trail easement along Little Rabbit Creek is going to be trapped on either side, and they're looking for an easement to go to 156, essentially so that they don't have a trapped trail. Or a trail to nowhere with both ends just dead ending on either lots. That seems to be what I understood to be the concern. Would you please address that a little succinctly for us where we can hear you a little better on as you just stipulated in your testimony?
I agree.
Sure. I think that was Craig's rebuttal, but I could speak to that briefly. Tract A will be further developed in the future, and it's our opinion that any trail dedication or trail easement dedication would be best suited once Tract A is further subdivided and we have a better understanding of what that subdivision looks like. So extending a 20-foot trail easement from Snowflake Drive down to Rabbit Creek and ending it at the south end of Lot 1 wouldn't necessarily dead-end it anywhere, considering that Tract A is expected to be further subdivided at some point in the future. Currently, we don't know what it's going to look like, but when we come forward with that application and that subdivision, that would be the time to address any trail easement requirements.
Thank you.
Does that raise any questions for other board members? I have a question with respect to the north-south trail, the one that is proposed from Snowflake Drive. How is is there a dedication for a trail from Snowflake Drive to Tract A?
Through the chair, if this is the staff, it would be an easement. That's why she's asking for 20 feet. It would be 20 feet easement there from Snowflake to the trail that runs east-west along Little Rabbit Creek. So, but yes, it does access Tract A. It's going to be right on the border there where the creek is, on either side of the creek. And that'll be within its own easement as well. So you have a 20-foot, you have a trail easement that runs down from Snowflake, and then it'll intersect the east-west connection, which is Little Rabbit Creek.
Thank you. I see that it's in number 12. Okay. Does that raise any questions for any other board members? Hearing and seeing none, looks like the matter now rests with the board, and the public hearing is closed. May I have a motion to approve the plat subject to conditions 1 through 16? Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
I move to, regarding case S12582 River Hills subdivision lots 1 through 27, phases 1 through C. I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Conditions 1, 2, 2A, 3, 4, 5, 5A, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9A and B, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14A, 15A through D, and 16A.
And your motion has been seconded by Valerie Ritz. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Okay, well, regarding public testimony, which was the biggest concern, the two concerns they brought up, I don't know the reality of not requiring an intersection light, so you're going to have to work with the municipality for that. I can understand that. I don't know the reality of making that come true just with new codes and public safety, and also how close this subdivision is in development to the schools. So I don't guess you can work with that. But regarding my motion to approve this, the public testimony specifically addressed, or most of it, two of them, it said access to the trail running east and west along Little Rabbit Creek. And it does appear as if there is access from Snowflake Drive 10 feet wide, although they wanted 20, 10 feet to the trail access. That trail access will eventually be determined, and then it is to the edge of Lot A. Lot A has not been replatted or subdivided, and I imagine when they go through the planning approval, just like they're working with Fish and Game, they'll have to go through this process again on Tract A. That does appear to be the situation. So other than that, it's very well documented in the other approvals regarding what they're going to have to work with water management and services to provide a flood study base, maps, drainage mapping, because there are wetlands in here as a wet area, so it looks like they have a lot of work to do regarding wetlands. And enter into subdivision agreements with private development for the use of the Class P area improvements, including cul-de-sac controls. And so it is heavily laden with criteria for the petitioner, and I don't think it's going to be an easy approval, but it looks like I see all bases have been covered. Thank you.
Thank you. And Don Porter.
Yes, this is Don Porter. I also intend to support your motion. I would like to clarify that it clearly states on item 12 that to dedicate a 20-foot trail easement along the eastern boundary of Lot 1, which was also echoed by the petitioner as well, that they are going to do that. So clearly, in my opinion, I see that the connectivity issues have been addressed. I am also in support of the notion that Tract A will, if it ever does get developed, that is the correct time to make permanent an easement when they define what development goes within Tract A. And so the other items about the lighting, specifically item 7 states to resolve with the private development the intersection configuration to include intersection lighting, resolve. So that means that they have the opportunity to work through the code and decide whether lighting goes in or doesn't go in. All of these items have been left to the code, which is the appropriate place for those decisions. And then with that, I conclude that I will be supporting this item.
Thank you. Are there any additional board members wishing to speak? I would like to also support the motion, and I also agree that with Ms. Holmes and Pease, that the Hillside District Plan would require a trail on the south side, and I agree also with the prior two speakers that the time for completing the trail beyond the trail access along the creek will be when Tract A is subsequently developed. But I would make the findings that the unmarked trail on the south side along the hill is indeed part of the Hillside Trail Plan, as evidenced by the evidence on pages 36 through 39 of our packet. And with that, I'd also make the findings that the lighting is subject to Hillside Plan and is something to be resolved with the Planning Department, and would also agree with Mr. Porter on flexibility in that making that decision between the developer and the municipality before that board. Does that raise any other findings from any other members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, do we have any opposition to the motion? If there's anyone that would like to oppose, would like to hear what you may have to say. Seeing and hearing none, we will go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Ms. Weltzine?
Sure, on my board.
Aye.
Ms. McGillivray?
Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
And Chair Walker, please.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion has passed unanimously. We will now turn our attention to F1D. Case S12585, Alicia Bradley Trevithick, removal of plat notes 7 and 8 of plat 95 and 93. May we have staff's presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask you to forgive me. It's been a little while since I've done this, so give me a little bit of a break. This is a request to remove 2 plat notes from plat 95-93, specifically plat notes 7 and 8. Plat note 7 limits the size of a residence to 3 bedrooms within lots 4 and 5 of this subdivision. Plat note 8 prohibits the placement of driveways, parking areas, or structures over 3 50 by 10 foot areas identified for septic sites in the center of the parcel. As I stated, plat notes 7 and 8 were applicable only to lots 4 and 5 within this subdivision. However, those 2 plat notes were removed from from Lot 5 in 1999. For a plat note to be removed or modified, there are 3 criteria that must be met. The first criteria, it states conditions that required the plat note on the original plat have changed and the need for the plat note has been negated. At the time of the approval for Plat 9593, on-site septic systems had not been approved. In September of 2020, a septic design showed a new septic tank to the west of the proposed 3-bedroom home on the parcel that meets the required separation distances and drain field square footage requirements in Anchorage Municipal Code. The need for prohibiting development in the 3 central areas of the lot identified as septic sites is no longer necessary. 3- and 4-bedroom homes have also been built since the time of the approval of Plat 9593 on adjacent lots. There is no longer a need to restrict development on these parcels to 3 bedrooms. Standard B states modification or removal of plat notes will not have a negative impact on adjacent or nearby properties. The adjacent parcel to the east has a 3-bedroom single-family dwelling. The adjacent parcel to the west is a 4-bedroom single-family dwelling. The removal of plat note number 7 restricting residential development to 3 bedrooms is in character with the neighborhood and will not have a negative impact. Adjacent properties have private well and septic systems. A letter from a professional engineer included in this packet states that they are unaware of any adverse impacts this installation would have on adjacent wells and septic systems. There are sufficient safeguards to ensure the property can support the proposed development without negative impacts on adjacent nearby properties. Standard number C states, despite modification or removal of the plat note, the plat continues to meet the approval criteria of subsection 2103-200C9. The plat note's removal is compatible with the neighborhood, provides for adequate access and utilities and facilities, orderly development and orderly development with the comprehensive plan. As such, the removal of plat notes 7 and 8 would allow Plat 9593 to continue to meet the approval criteria as outlined in Chapter 3, subsection 200. I would like to point out on page 42 of your staff packet, Deb Walkenfuss from the on-site water and wastewater section has stated no objection to this request. And with that, I would direct you to page 3 and our recommendation of approval of this request. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff? Hearing and seeing none, will we have petitioner's representative?
Yes, this is Elisa Trevithick.
Please state your name again.
Elisa Trevithick.
Thank you. And did you want to reserve any of your time for rebuttal?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you automatically reserve any time you don't use, but if you'd like to speak, you
Okay.
have the floor.
No, I think he stated everything just great.
Thank you. Looks like you have 9 minutes and 55 seconds for rebuttal. Does the board have any questions for petitioner's representative? Thank you very much. We will return to you after we have public testimony. Do we have any public testimony this evening? And we have no public testimony. So you now have an opportunity for rebuttal.
I'm okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll now close the public testimony portion of the hearing and the matter rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the request to remove Note 7? Kevin Cross.
Regarding case S12585, Hokama Heights subdivisions, number 1, lot 4. I move to approve the request to remove note number 7 on plat 9593 for lot 4, Hokama Heights, subject to number 1, recording a resolution with the State of Alaska District Recorder's Office.
Thank you. And I believe you have a second from Valerie Ritz. Or it's got one in the room from Mark Seward. Could be. She is 7:42. It's about right. Would you like to speak to your motion, Mr. Cross?
Yeah, I'd like to say that the plat note on number 5, which is a very similar lot, adjacent, this was already done in 1999 with case number S10369. So it looks like this is an extension of, a previous approval, just extending onto the next lot. I also want to make sure to note that the restrictive language regarding the septic systems was before some rather spectacular advances in septic systems that we've seen in just the last 10 years. So we'll probably see a lot more of this come before us. However, meeting the conditions that are noted on pages 2 and 3, A, B, and C, specifically, modification or removal of the plat notes will not have a negative impact on adjacent or nearby properties. So I just move to approve it.
Thank you. Do we have any other board members who wish to weigh in with some findings? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Ms. Weltzing? Ms. Weltzing?
Aye.
Ms. McGillivray?
Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
And Chair Walker.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, the motion passes. May we have a motion to approve the removal of note number 8? Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Regarding S12585, Oklahoma Heights subdivisions, lot 1, tract 1, lot 4, approval to, move to approve the request to remove note number 8 from plat 9593 for lot 4, Oklahoma Heights subdivision, subject to recording a resolution of State of Alaska District Recorder's Office.
Thank you, and do we have a second? Mark Seward has seconded. Mr. Cross, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just reiterate what I said before in my first motion. Again, this was previously approved on the flat next door, and it's met staff requirements noted on pages 2 and 3.
Thank you. Are there any other findings the board wishes to offer? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Ms. Weltzing?
Aye.
Ms. McGillivray?
Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
And Chair Walker.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our agenda. So we will now stand in adjournment. It is 7:47. Good evening.